In a small town lived a boy named Ion, who was not known for intelligence or brilliance, but for the countless times he failed in his school exams, and his name became a joke in the community. Every exam season brought him the same humiliation, watching his classmates cheer with joy while he stood silently at the corner, his report card filled with red marks again and again. Teachers began to avoid him, neighbors mocked his parents, and relatives whispered behind their backs, telling them that their son would never become anything respectable in life. His father, a tired daily wage worker, returned home with broken hands, yet always tried to smile, while his mother hid her tears but still whispered faith into her son's ears. Ion lay awake at night, staring at the cracked ceiling, asking himself if he was truly useless, or if failure was simply pointing him towards something else he had not discovered yet. Useless boy with no future, or if failure was only a sign from life pushing him toward a hidden strength waiting deep inside, something he had never dared to search for before. One evening, Ion wandered through the market where he saw a man repairing broken radios with focus and patience, and for the first time, curiosity replaced his sadness, a spark lighting inside him quietly. That small spark grew when he borrowed a broken radio from a neighbor, sat on the floor with trembling hands, and after hours of effort, the dead machine came alive with music, shocking even himself. The neighbors who once laughed at his failures now gathered, watching the boy who could fix what they had thrown away, and slowly their whispers turned from insults into surprise, from mockery into respect. For the first time in his life, Ion felt a victory not written on exam papers, but written on his soul, proving that failure in one thing could be the door to something greater. Soon, Ion began collecting broken devices from garbage bins and neighbors' storerooms, turning his small room into a workshop filled with wires, tools, and hope, where every spark of electricity felt like a heartbeat of his new dream. While other students revised textbooks, Ion spent his nights repairing fans, radios, and even old televisions, and slowly, his name spread across the neighborhood no longer as a failure, but as the boy who could fix anything. His parents, once crushed by the weight of humiliation, now watched silently with teary eyes, realizing that their son had finally found his path, a path no exam result could ever measure. But success never comes without challenges, and Ion faced new struggles, from lack of money to buy proper tools, to people doubting whether his work could ever become a serious career. Yet every broken device he touched became a teacher, every small repair gave him confidence, and every satisfied neighbor became a reason to believe that he was not defined by failure, but by determination. Days turned into months, and Ion's workshop became a small corner of miracles, where broken machines found new life, and a broken boy slowly transformed into someone people trusted with their most valuable belongings. Sometimes he failed again, burning circuits, breaking wires, and feeling the sting of mistakes. But unlike school exams, here failure was not final, it was simply another lesson pushing him closer to mastery. Slowly, even his classmates who once mocked him started bringing their gadgets, surprised that the boy they laughed at was now the one they relied upon to solve their problems. With each repair, Ion's confidence grew like a flame refusing to die, proving to himself that failure was never the end of the road, but the beginning of a new and greater journey. The town that once pointed fingers now pointed with pride, calling him not the boy who failed exams, but the boy who never gave up, the boy who turned failure into his greatest strength. One afternoon, while repairing a television, Ion received an unexpected visitor, a local shopkeeper who had heard about his skills and wanted to offer him paid work, something Ion never imagined after years of being called a failure. With trembling hands, Ion fixed the shopkeeper's broken fan in front of him, and when the blades finally began to spin, the shopkeeper clapped and said, "Son, you are going to go very far." That single moment changed everything. Suddenly, he was no longer repairing for free, but earning money, and each coin in his pocket carried a weight heavier than any medal he could have won at school. His parents, who once worried if their son had a future, now watched with glowing eyes as Ion began contributing to the house, turning from a burden into a pillar of strength for the entire family. Word spread beyond the town, and people from nearby villages traveled just to meet the boy who had once been labeled hopeless but was now known as the repairer of dreams, the fixer of broken hope. With every passing week, Ion's workshop transformed from a dusty corner into a small business where children peeked curiously through the window and elders nodded proudly, seeing a once broken boy building a life from scratch. The same teachers who once shook their heads in disappointment now invited him to school programs, introducing him as an example that success is not always written in exam papers but in courage and hard work. Ion still remembered the taste of failure, but now it no longer scared him. Instead, it became fuel, reminding him that each mistake was simply another step closer to becoming uncheckable. He began saving money, buying better tools, expanding his skills to computers and mobile phones, turning his small workshop into a hub where technology and determination met like fire and steel. The boy once called a failure now had customers lining up, parents smiling proudly, and a town cheering for him, proving that the world always remembers not those who never fell, but those who refused to stay down. Years passed, and Ion was no longer just the repair boy. He was invited to seminars, standing on stages where once he sat at the back benches, now sharing his story with hundreds who listened in silence. His voice carried the weight of every sleepless night, every insult, every broken device he fixed, and every tear his parents had shed. The crowd listened, inspired, knowing they were hearing a fighter's truth. Media soon caught his story, printing headlines about the boy who failed exams but repaired his destiny, turning his name into a symbol of resilience, determination, and unstoppable courage across towns and cities. The same neighbors who once whispered poison now boasted proudly, telling others they had grown up beside him, and children looked at him with sparkling eyes, calling him their hero. One evening, standing at the rooftop, Ion looked at the glowing lights of his town and whispered to himself, "Maybe I was never meant to top exams, maybe I was meant to teach the world something bigger." Opportunities kept knocking, and Ion opened a small training center, teaching other struggling students the skills he had mastered, proving that failure could not stop a man determined to rise again. His students were not the toppers, not the brightest, but the forgotten ones, the ones who reminded him of himself. And slowly, together they built a family of fighters who believed in second chances. One boy asked him, "Sir, how did you survive all those failures?" And Ion smiled, replying softly, "I never survived. I learned to live with failure until it became my strength." Parents who once prayed for their children to pass exams now brought them to Ion, saying, "Make our child like you, not just educated, but brave enough to fight life." And in those moments, Ion realized that true success was never about topping exams or earning certificates, but about touching lives, lifting others, and proving that broken people can rebuild stronger than ever. One evening, Ion was invited to a huge auditorium filled with students, parents, and teachers, where his journey from failure to success was to be shared as the highlight of the event. Standing on that stage, he looked at thousands of eyes fixed on him, and for a moment he remembered the small boy hiding his failed report card, trembling in the corner of a classroom. He took a deep breath and said, "I failed in every exam, but life gave me another test, and this time I refused to give up. I refused to stay broken." The hall erupted in applause, but Ion's eyes filled with tears because he wasn't thinking about the claps. He was thinking of his parents, the silent warriors who believed in him when nobody else did. His father, once returning home with cracked hands, now sat in the front row, proud and smiling, whispering to his wife, "Our son didn't just pass life, he changed it." Ion raised his hands and told the crowd, "Exams are not the final destination. They're only milestones. What matters most is finding the courage to stand up every time you fall." Students who once doubted themselves now felt hope rushing in their veins, realizing that if a boy who failed repeatedly could shine so brightly, then their own failures were not the end either. Teachers who once marked his papers with red crosses now clapped with respect, understanding that real education is not about marks, but about shaping hearts that refuse to quit. That night, under the glowing lights of the stage, Ion whispered to himself, "Failure gave me pain, but pain gave me purpose, and purpose gave me the life I always dreamed of." And so, the boy who once failed in exams became a legend in his town, teaching the world a lesson far greater than textbooks. Failure is not the end, it is only the beginning of greatness. And before you go, remember one thing: failures are not the end, they are the beginning of your greatest story. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone who needs this message today. And hey, I would love to know, from which country are you watching this video? Drop your country's name in the comments below. I'll be waiting to read each one. And of course, if you want more powerful and life-changing stories, make sure you subscribe to Mr. Shahzaib and join this journey of motivation. See you in the next video. Champions, stay strong, stay unbreakable.